The Cosmic Fear Commission declared humanity the most terrifying species in existence. Part 1. The Grand Chamber of the Cosmic Fear Commission hadn't opened its doors in 40,000 years. Deep within the neutral zone of space, far from any sun or planet, the ancient structure floated in the darkness like a monument to caution itself. Today, beings from across the galaxy gathered within its walls, their various forms casting strange shadows under the pale blue light. Ambassador 7 stood at the center of the circular room, his crystalline body reflecting light in sharp angles. His species, had spent millions of years studying fear across 10,000 different worlds. They understood terror better than any other race in the known universe. If 7 said something was dangerous, the galaxy listened. Around him sat the other members of the commission. There was Senior Commissioner, whose consciousness spread across 12,000 individual bodies, all thinking as one. The Eternal Watcher occupied the shadows in the corner, a being so old that most species considered it a myth. 36 other representatives filled the remaining seats, each one an expert in threat assessment and survival. "We convene for humanity," 7 said, his voice chiming like wind through crystal caves. "A new species recently contacted. They call their world Earth." A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed a small blue planet, unremarkable by galactic standards. The gathered beings leaned forward with mild interest. New species were always assessed, but few required the full commission's attention. "Initial assessment suggests minimal threat," 7 continued. "They are carbon-based bipeds, physically weak compared to most spacefaring races. Their average is only 80 of their years. They have barely achieved faster-than-light travel. By all standard metrics, they should be classified as Threat Category 8. A few of the commissioners began to relax. Category 8 meant minimal concern, hardly worth the commission's time. "However," 7 said, and the single word made the room fall silent. "The behavioral analysis revealed certain patterns that do not match any known species profile." The holographic display changed. It now showed images from Earth's history. The commissioners watched as primitive humans chased large animals across vast plains. The chase went on for hours, then days. The animal was faster and stronger, but the humans never stopped. They just kept coming, walking steadily behind their prey until the creature collapsed from exhaustion. "They are persistence hunters," 7 explained. "They evolved to chase their prey to death, not through strength or speed but through the simple refusal to stop." One of the commissioners, a being made entirely of flowing water, shifted uncomfortably in its containment vessel. The images changed again. Now they showed humans living alongside creatures that should have been their predators. Large canines with sharp teeth sat peacefully in human homes, playing with human children. The images showed the progression from wild wolf to domesticated dog, a transformation that took thousands of years. "They take apex predators," 7 said slowly, "and make those predators love them. They call it domestication. The creatures that should hunt them instead protect them, guard their homes, and consider themselves part of human family units." Commissioners' many bodies stirred in their seats. "That is unusual," the hive mind said through a dozen mouths at once, "but not necessarily threatening." "There is more," 7 replied. The display showed human entertainment, movies about world-ending disasters, books about zombie apocalypses and alien invasions, video games where players fought against impossible odds, entire industries devoted to showing humans their own potential extinction. "They consume scenarios of their own destruction," 7 said. "For pleasure. They watch their cities burn in fiction and call it entertainment. They imagine ways they might die and then pay to experience those imaginings." The water-being commissioner rippled with obvious distress. "Why would any species do this?" "We don't know," 7 admitted, "but the pattern continues. Observe." New images appeared. Humans jumping from aircraft with only fabric to slow their fall. Humans climbing sheer rock faces thousands of feet high. Humans diving into deep water with predators that could kill them instantly. Humans launching themselves down snow-covered mountains at deadly speeds. They actively seek danger, Seven said. They feel fear, recognize it, understand it could kill them, and then they do the dangerous thing anyway. They have a word for it: thrill-seeking. The Eternal Watcher spoke for the first time, its voice like wind through empty corridors. Show us their bonding behavior. Seven nodded, though he seemed reluctant. The display changed to show humans with pets, not just dogs but cats, birds, reptiles, and rodents. Then it showed humans forming emotional attachments to robots, to stuffed toys, to their vehicles, which they named and spoke to as if the machines could understand. They bond with anything, Seven said quietly. We documented a human who formed an emotional attachment to a rock. A rock. She kept it for 20 years, gave it a name, and mourned when she lost it. Another human bonded with a simple cleaning machine. When it stopped working, the human held a funeral. The gathered beings sat in stunned silence. This went beyond unusual. This suggested something fundamentally different about human psychology. There is a documented case, Seven continued, of a human who encountered one of the Void Stalkers. You know these creatures. They are perfect killing machines, designed by nature to be unlovable, existing only to hunt. The humans saw this Void Stalker and their first instinct was to try to pet it. Several commissioners made sounds of alarm in their native languages. The human survived, asked. Yes. The Void Stalker was apparently so confused by the attempt that it simply left. Our analysts believe the human's complete lack of appropriate fear response created a situation the Stalker had no programming to handle. The Eternal Watcher shifted in the shadows. You are building to something, Seven. What is your assessment? Seven's crystalline form seemed to dim slightly. I have studied fear for 3,000 years. I have analyzed the psychology of species from every corner of known space. I understand what makes beings afraid, what they run from, what they fight against. He paused. Humans scare me, and I don't fully understand why. The admission sent a wave of unease through the chamber. If a felt instinctive fear, there was usually a good reason. They are not strong, Seven said. They are not particularly intelligent compared to the top species. They are not long-lived. They are not naturally armored or armed. By every logical measure, they should not be threatening. His voice dropped lower. But there is something in the way they look at the universe, something in how they refuse to accept limitations. When we tell them something is impossible, they seem to hear it as a challenge. His consciousness rippled across all 12,000 of his bodies at once. You are requesting a full deep-dive assessment. Yes, Seven said. I am requesting we assign a research team to embed with humans for an extended period. We need to understand them before they spread further into the galaxy. This will take resources, another commissioner pointed out. Is it truly necessary for such a primitive species? The Eternal Watcher spoke again, and this time its voice carried weight that made the air itself seem heavier. I have existed for longer than most of your species have had language. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched as confident species ignored small threats until those threats consumed them. The ancient being leaned forward slightly. Seven's instincts have never been wrong. If he feels fear, we should all pay attention. The vote was unanimous. A full research team would be assembled and sent to Earth. They would study humans in their natural environment, document their behavior, and try to understand what made them so fundamentally different from every other species in the galaxy. As the commission adjourned, Seven stood alone in the chamber, looking at the holographic image of Earth still floating in the center of the room. The small blue planet seemed so peaceful, so harmless. But he had learned long ago that the most dangerous things rarely look dangerous at first glance. He thought about the human trying to pet a Void Stalker. He thought about humans chasing their prey for days without stopping. He thought about them laughing at their own fears and bonding with creatures that should terrify them. Somewhere deep in his crystalline consciousness, in a place where pure instinct lived beyond thought or reason, Seven felt a truth he couldn't quite articulate. Humanity was going to change the galaxy forever, one way or another. Whether that change would be good or catastrophic remained to be seen. He dimmed his internal light and left the chamber, already composing the mission parameters for the research team. They would need specialists in psychology, sociology, military strategy, and survival behavior. They would need beings who could observe without interfering, who could maintain objectivity even when faced with the inexplicable. Most importantly, they would need beings brave enough to spend extended time among a species that domesticated wolves, chased prey to exhaustion, and thought playing with danger was fun. The research team would leave within the month. Seven only hoped they would return with answers instead of more questions, and he hoped, perhaps foolishly, that those answers wouldn't confirm his growing suspicion that humanity was the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever encountered, precisely because they didn't seem dangerous at all. Part 2. Doctor pressed 3 of her sensory tendrils against the observation window and tried to calm her racing thoughts. Below her, in the busy human city called New York, millions of minds created a constant background noise of emotion that made her species dizzy. The Sensing Collective had chosen her for this mission because she could feel the emotional resonance of entire populations. It was a gift that had served her well across dozens of worlds. On Earth, it felt more like a curse. "They're so loud," she said to her assistant, a methodical named Click7. "Not in sound, but in feeling. Every human burns so bright with emotion. It never stops." Click7 adjusted his translation device. "Is it painful?" "No," admitted. "That's what disturbs me. It should be overwhelming, but instead it's almost intoxicating. They feel everything so intensely." She pulled her tendrils back. "I've been here for 3 weeks and I still don't understand them." The research team had spread across Earth, embedding themselves in various human communities, had chosen to observe urban humans, believing that cities would show humanity at its most advanced. What she found instead challenged every assumption she'd brought with her. The data they'd collected so far painted a picture that made even seasoned uncomfortable. Pulled up the latest report on her, and reviewed the findings that would soon be sent back to the commission. Humans had something they called spite. It wasn't just anger or revenge. It was the willingness to harm themselves if it meant dragging an enemy down with them. The team had documented countless examples throughout human history. Soldiers holding explosive devices to their own bodies to stop an advance. Pilots deliberately crashing their aircraft into enemy targets. The concept of mutually assured destruction, where 2 nations pointed enough weapons at each other to destroy the entire planet, and somehow that threat prevented war instead of guaranteeing it. "It makes no sense," Click7 said, reading over her shoulder. "Game theory suggests both parties should back down from mutually assured destruction. The logical outcome is cooperation." "Humans aren't logical," replied. "At least not in the way we understand logic. They make decisions based on emotion and then create logical frameworks to justify those decisions afterward." She switched to another section of the report. This one detailed humanity's relationship with fear itself. Her team had discovered that humans actively sought out things that scared them. They built elaborate machines designed solely to create the sensation of falling or moving at dangerous speeds. They paid money to enter buildings specifically designed to frighten them. They watched horror movies, read scary stories, and told each other tales meant to create fear. "They feel fear and then they laugh," said softly. "I've observed it myself. A human rides a roller coaster, experiences genuine terror, and then the moment it's over they're laughing and wanting to do it again." Click7's antennae drooped in confusion. Is it a malfunction in their fear response? No, their fear response works perfectly. They just seem to enjoy overcoming it. They've weaponized their own stress response, turning adrenaline into something they seek out for pleasure. The door to their observation room opened, and another team member entered. This was, a reptilian being from a species known for their military prowess. He'd been assigned to study human combat and conflict resolution. "You need to see this," Or said without preamble. He activated a holographic display showing footage from various human disasters. "Watch how they respond to catastrophe." The display showed a building on fire. Human emergency responders ran into the burning structure while others ran out. The responders knew the danger but charged in any way to rescue people they'd never met. "They have a saying," Or explained. "They run toward danger while others run away, and they volunteer for this. No one forces them. They choose to be the ones who enter burning buildings or face armed criminals or respond to disasters." Another clip showed a human throwing themselves on top of an explosive device to shield others with their own body. The human died, but saved everyone else. "This behavior appears across all human cultures," Or continued. "Self-sacrifice for strangers. They call them heroes, and human children grow up wanting to be heroes. They actively aspire to put themselves in danger for others." Felt a chill run through her sensory tendrils. Add it to the report. Over the following weeks, the findings grew more disturbing. The team discovered humanity's approach to impossible problems. When told something couldn't be done, humans seemed to interpret it as a challenge rather than a fact. The galactic community had said faster-than-light travel was impossible. Humans developed 3 different types of FTL drives in less than a century. None of them were particularly safe, but all of them worked. "They have a phrase," told the team during one of their meetings. "Hold my beer." It means watch what I'm about to do, something you think is impossible or stupid or both, and I'm going to do it anyway. "That's suicidal," one team member said. "Sometimes," agreed, "but often enough they succeed. And when they fail, they learn from it and try again. They treat failure as information rather than as a reason to stop." The most disturbing discovery came when herself spent a day walking among humans, using a holographic disguise to appear as one of them. She'd sat in a human and simply listened to their conversations. 2 young humans discussed their lives with a strange mixture of despair and hope. They talked about how the universe was vast and uncaring, how humanity was just a tiny speck in cosmic terms, how nothing they did really mattered in the grand scheme of things. Had expected this to lead to depression or nihilism. Instead, one of the humans had laughed and said, "So since nothing matters, we might as well try to make things better. We get to choose what has meaning." The other had agreed enthusiastically. "Exactly. The universe doesn't care, so we have to care extra hard. It's up to us to make things worthwhile." Had excused herself and returned to the observation post in a daze. She'd spent hours researching what humans called optimistic nihilism, the belief that life had no inherent meaning, and that somehow this made everything more important rather than less. They looked at a cold, uncaring universe and decided that was freeing rather than horrifying. "They find hope in meaninglessness," she told her team. "Every other species I've studied finds meaning and builds hope from that. Humans work backward. They accept meaninglessness and create their own meaning anyway." Click 7's translation device made a sound like confused static. "That shouldn't work psychologically." "It shouldn't," agreed. "But it does. And it makes them unstoppable in a way I can't fully explain. Because if they create their own meaning, then failure doesn't destroy that meaning. The universe can't take away what they've built for themselves." The team compiled their findings into a comprehensive report, read through it 3 times before sending it to the commission. Each time, she felt a growing sense of unease. Humans were persistent hunters who never stopped chasing what they wanted. They domesticated their predators and made those predators love them. They pack-bonded with anything, turning potential threats into friends. They sought out fear for entertainment. They ran toward danger while others ran away. They believed spite was a valid reason to risk everything. They treated impossible as a challenge. They created meaning in a meaningless universe and somehow found that empowering. On paper, they weren't the strongest or most advanced species, but they might be the most dangerous, precisely because they didn't think like any other species. They didn't follow the rules that governed every other form of intelligent life. Final assessment. Click 7 asked as prepared to send the report. She was quiet for a long moment, feeling the constant buzz of human emotion from the city below. Millions of humans, all burning with feeling, all convinced they could make a difference, all refusing to accept that anything was truly impossible. "We should be very afraid," said finally. "Not because they want to hurt us, but because they're going to befriend us and we're going to let them, and then we'll realize we've let something into the galaxy that we don't know how to stop." She sent the report. 3 days later, the Commission called an emergency session, and her team were summoned to appear in person. As their ship left Earth's orbit, looked back at the blue planet and felt something she rarely experienced. Hope mixed with terror, the most human combination of emotions imaginable. She wondered if spending time with humans was already changing her. The thought should have worried her more than it did. Part 3. The Commission chamber was packed with beings from every corner of the galaxy. Word had spread that the assessment of humanity had revealed something unprecedented, and species that normally avoided such gatherings had sent representatives. The air hummed with tension and a dozen different methods of communication. Ambassador 7 stood at the center once again, holding the research team's comprehensive report. Doctor and her colleagues sat in the observation section, watching as the crystalline being prepared to deliver findings that would change everything. "We have completed the deep assessment of humanity," 7 began. His voice carried clearly through the chamber's translation systems. "What we have learned defies all established models of intelligent species development." The holographic display activated, showing images and data from the research team's months on Earth. The gathered beings watched in growing alarm as 7 walked them through the findings: the persistence hunting, the domestication of predators, the pack bonding with anything, the seeking of fear, the running toward danger, the spite, the optimistic nihilism. "They are not like us," 7 said. "They do not think like us, they do not fear like us, they do not survive like us." A representative from the peaceful Confederacy stood, her bioluminescent skin flashing with distress. "Then we must quarantine them immediately, contain them to their home system until we understand the threat they pose." "Impossible," a gravelly voice responded. This was General of the warrior clans, a species that had conquered 30 systems through military might. "If they are as persistent as the report suggests, quarantine will only delay the inevitable. We should strike now before they spread." The chamber erupted into argument. Some species called for diplomacy. Others demanded military action. The ancient observers, who had maintained strict neutrality for millions of years, shocked everyone by voting for maximum threat classification. Senior Commissioners' 12,000 bodies stood as one, creating a wave of motion that silenced the room. "We will hear from the research team directly. Doctor, please approach." Moved to the center of the chamber on unsteady limbs. She could feel the emotional weight of every being present, all of them radiating various shades of fear and anger and confusion. "Doctor," said through a dozen mouths, "in your assessment, what threat category should humanity receive?" Before could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Security protocols activated. The chamber's massive doors, which hadn't been breached in 40,000 years, suddenly slid open. 5 humans walked in. The chamber exploded into chaos. Security forces moved to intercept, but the humans held up empty hands in a gesture of peace. The lead human, a woman with dark hair and calm eyes, smiled at the gathered assembly. "Sorry we're late," she said. "We weren't exactly invited, but we figured we should probably be here for a trial about our own species." She held up a bag. "We brought snacks." Seven's crystalline form flickered with shock. "How did you breach our security?" The woman shrugged. "Your network security is pretty good, but not great. We noticed someone was studying us pretty intensely, did some digging, found out about this meeting." She looked around the chamber with interest. Nice place, very intimidating. This, realized, was the most terrifying thing she'd witnessed since arriving on Earth. The humans weren't scared. They stood in a room full of species that could destroy them, at a trial that could result in their extinction, and they were treating it like a social gathering. They didn't understand the danger, or worse, they understood perfectly and simply didn't care. "I'm Dr. Sarah," the woman said, addressing the entire commission, "which is convenient given the circumstances." She gestured to her companions. "This is my team. We'd like to offer the human perspective on your assessment." The Eternal Watcher spoke from the shadows, its ancient voice cutting through the confusion. "Let them speak." Security forces backed away reluctantly. Doctor walked to the center of the chamber, standing beside. She gave the alien researcher a friendly nod before turning to address the commission. "I've read your report," said. "Well, the parts we could decrypt, you're not wrong about us. We are persistent hunters. We do bond with basically everything. We did domesticate wolves, and yes, we thought that was a good idea at the time." She paused. "We're aware we're weird." "You're dangerous," General growled. "Maybe," agreed easily. "But let me tell you why we're weird, because I think context matters." She activated her own, and with a casual hack that made several commissioners flinch, she took control of the chamber's display system. "Earth is a death world," began. "We didn't know that until we met you folks and realized most life develops on much gentler planets. Our world has earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, volcanoes, and enough natural disasters to keep things interesting. Our atmosphere was toxic until plants spent millions of years making it breathable. Asteroids hit us periodically. One killed all the large reptiles and gave our ancestors a chance to evolve." The display showed images of Earth's harsh beauty, storms that could flatten cities, waves that could drown coastlines, fire and ice and endless danger. "We evolved in a world that was actively trying to kill us," continued. "So we learned to be stubborn. We learned that stopping meant dying, so we just didn't stop. We learned that the things trying to eat us could be befriended because friendship was more useful than constant fighting. We learned to laugh at fear because fear was constant, and if we let it control us, we'd never leave our caves." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of different species without flinching. "You're right to be afraid of us," said quietly, "but not because we're warriors or conquerors. You should be afraid because we refuse to accept that anything is impossible, including friendship with species that find us terrifying." "Your persistence is not friendship," one commissioner said. "It's an invasion of boundaries." Smiled, "Maybe at first, but here's the thing about humans. We're going to keep showing up. We're going to keep trying to help. We're going to keep bonding with your pets and your children and probably your houseplants. And eventually, despite your fear, you're going to like us." "Why?" asked, genuinely curious. "Because we care," said simply. "In a universe that doesn't care about anything, we care aggressively. We care about people we've never met. We care about species we've just discovered. We care about causes that have nothing to do with us. It's annoying and inconvenient and sometimes dangerous, but it's who we are." She pulled something from her bag. It was a small container with cookies inside. She walked to the nearest commissioner, a being made of flowing energy, and offered them. "We can't eat solid matter," the commissioner said, confused. "I know," replied, "but offering food is how humans say, 'I want to be friends.' So I'm offering anyway because the gesture matters more than whether you can accept it." The commissioner stared at the cookies for a long moment, then carefully took the container with a field of energy. "Thank you," it said, sounding bemused. "Return to the center. That's what really terrifies you. Not that we're monsters, but that we'll make you care about monsters. We'll show you that the scary thing chasing you across the plains just wants to be friends. We'll demonstrate that fear is something you can ride for fun. We'll prove that spite can save lives and that meaning can be created from nothing." She spread her hands. "So yes, classify us however you want. Category 1 existential threat seems fair. We probably are a threat to the galaxy as you know it, because we're going to change things. We're going to make you question assumptions you've held for millions of years. And we're going to do it by offering cookies and asking to pet your equivalent of cats." The chamber was silent. Every being present struggled to process what they'd just witnessed. A human had walked into the most powerful tribunal in the galaxy, admitted to being dangerous, and somehow made it sound like an offer of friendship. Seven's crystalline form pulsed with something that might have been admiration or terror or both. The commission must vote on humanity's threat classification. The vote was swift and unanimous. Category 1 existential threat, the highest possible rating. Species that posed fundamental danger to galactic civilization as it currently existed. Then called for a second vote. All in favor of maintaining diplomatic relations with humanity, accepting them into the Galactic Council, and establishing cultural exchange programs. Watched in amazement as, one by one, every commissioner voted yes. Even general, even the ancient observers, even the species that had argued most strongly for quarantine. "This is illogical," Click 7 whispered beside her. "No," said, finally understanding. "It's human logic. We're terrified of them, but we're more terrified of facing the universe without them." 12,000 bodies spoke as one. "We are indeed terrified of humanity, but we are perhaps more terrified of what the galaxy would become if we tried to face it without them. Let it be recorded that on this day, humanity was declared the most terrifying species in existence, and also our allies." Grinned, "That's the spirit. Now who wants to try a cookie? Their chocolate chip, very traditional." 3 months later, found herself on Earth again, but this time as an official ambassador. She stood in a human park, watching Doctor teach a group of alien children how to roast marshmallows over a small fire. The children represented a dozen different species, all of them participating in the new cultural exchange program. "This one is ready," said, pulling a perfectly golden marshmallow from the fire. "The key is patience and rotating it constantly." A small child, its crystalline form barely formed, reached out excitedly. "Can I try?" "Absolutely. Here, I'll show you how to hold the stick safely." Watched as guided the child through the process, her patience and warmth obvious. Around them, other human volunteers helped more alien children learn this strange human tradition of cooking sugar over open flames. "It's working," Click 7 said, standing beside. "They're not afraid anymore." "They're still afraid," corrected gently, but was right. The fear matters less than the connection. She felt the emotional resonance from the gathering, a mixture of nervousness and excitement and joy. The humans are teaching them that fear and friendship can exist together. That evening, sat with the children around the fire and told them stories. Ghost stories, designed to be scary but not traumatizing. The children screamed and laughed in equal measure, already beginning to understand the strange human alchemy that transformed fear into entertainment. Their parents watched from a distance, both horrified and oddly reassured. If anyone could handle the universe's next great crisis, it might just be these bizarre, indomitable creatures who domesticated wolves, ran toward danger, and somehow convinced an entire galaxy that being terrified of someone wasn't a reason to reject them. Felt a tendril of warmth from Doctor's direction, and realized the human was including her in the gathering's emotional circle, treating an alien observer as part of the group without hesitation. This was pack bonding in action, the unstoppable human tendency to adopt anything into their family. She should have been concerned. According to all her training, she should have maintained professional distance. Instead, she moved closer to the fire and asked if she could try a marshmallow. Smile could have lit the darkest corner of space. Of course, welcome to the family. And just like that, understood why the commission had been right to be terrified. The humans were already winning, one cookie and one campfire at a time. They would befriend the galaxy not through conquest or manipulation, but through the simple, persistent offer of connection. The universe didn't stand a chance.